The political panel all-stars up shortly, whānau, but now this week's extra 1-on-1 in 10 with education activist Brie Elliott on what is really behind the government's education agenda. Kia ora, comrade. Welcome to the show and thank you for being available to the Fourth Estate. Your democracy is grateful.
Kia ora. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Brie, I want to pay respect to the remarkable citizen journalism you have been producing in terms of understanding what is really going on with our public education system. Alan Alec is the Daily Blog's education blogger, and he raves and quotes your research chapter and verse. So firstly, thank you for providing so much insight.
Thank you so much. I love Alan's work as well. I'm glad that someone is actually reporting on the education changes, because I would say they're some of the biggest in New Zealand's history.
Preach. I think there are a few silver bullets in society. Public health, public education, and public services are three of them. And your research in what has been going on behind the scenes in public education is deeply alarming. We have the New Zealand Initiative, a right-wing think tank and member of the Atlas Network, quietly influencing these behind-the-scenes reforms, and your research frequently mentions Dame Elizabeth Rata as a leading voice. Based on the evidence you've gathered, what role have these right-wing think tanks played in shaping Erica Stanford's curriculum reforms?
Yeah. Well, it's actually crazy because if you look on Facebook's meta ad library, the New Zealand Initiative posted plenty of ads about how they would change New Zealand education. And they even released a whole report called Save Our Schools. That was, the foreword was written by Elizabeth Rata.
That's right.
And it basically said their entire plan for how we should reform New Zealand's education system. And it seems like the National Party decided that was policy and is now implementing that. And they're covering everything from teaching council standards to the curriculum to NCEA to ERO, the Education Review Office. Every single aspect of education is being touched by the ministry right now.
And it's weirdly anti-Māori, isn't it? Why is it so anti-Māori?
Great question. I think we have a lot of racist people in the country still, sadly. A lot of the feedback that was given, especially to the Waitangi Tribunal around the curriculum changes, was that Māori educators were sidelined from that experience and they weren't allowed to give information that they thought would be insightful for the redraft. And the ministry actually advised against that. They said we need Māori input, but they did it anyway because they don't listen to experts for some reason.
There is look, I've followed up on the amazing research that you've done, and I have spent quite a bit of time trying to understand the Atlas Network's role in all of this. And if you look at the way they play in Canada, if you look at the way they play in Australia, there is this real focus on attacking Indigenous education and taking that Indigenous voice out. And the rationale seems to be, in the meta of what Atlas are trying to do, is that Indigenous education, Māori, Aboriginal, Inuit, that Indigenous framing and understanding creates citizens who simply aren't prepared to have their rights strayed over, and they're not prepared to have the second wave of exploitative capitalism rob them of their resources. Am I taking a long bow here? Am I drawing a long bow to suggest that the reason why they're so keen to attack Māori in education is because they want to silence that Indigenous voice and they want to roll back some of the wins that have occurred in New Zealand?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I totally believe that. I mean, Kura kaupapa Māori children are achieving massive results. I don't have the numbers on me, but they're doing really well in school comparably to mainstream state schools. So I do believe there is an aspect of rolling that back. We also know the Māori economy is very successful. So yeah, Māori are thriving at the moment, and I don't think they like that. They kind of use the argument of, it's to create freedom so you can have charter schools and that kind of thing. And Māori can create their own charter schools, but is that not just segregating them from the mainstream public school system? I personally believe every public school should have the same amount of resources, same everything, and we should all just it's just, very conflicting. They want less oversight and less control, but then they're also giving themselves more oversight and control.
You've spent a lot of time examining these reforms. What's the single biggest thing the public misunderstand about the changes Erica Stanford is making to the curriculum?
I think we often get really conflicted and confused and call it a woke or an indoctrination versus education sort of debate.
Yeah.
I think we need to focus fact that it's actually about where power is sitting in our education system. And basically over the past few years under this government, we've seen decision making move away from independent professional bodies and go into ministers and ministerial appointees, central government. So whether or not you support or oppose the actual reforms, I think we all deserve to understand that that's what's happening.
When you trace the development of these reforms, what patterns stood out? Were the changes primarily driven by educational research, political ideology, international trends, or a combination?
Definitely a combination. I would say that evidence is cherry-picked to match the ideology.
Wow.
As opposed to just being the evidence.
Right.
But of course, I'm not a teacher and
Sure.
I'm not a qualified teacher. And so it's hard for me to judge if the curriculum is good or not. And it's not for me to judge. It's for the experts. And that's why I get so frustrated when the experts are the ones saying that they're not being listened to. 650 principals said that the curriculum was being rushed. They didn't have enough support and it was unrealistic.
Wow.
So those are the people that the government should be listening
That's
to.
the front line, right? You can't get any more front line than the principals. One of the criticisms made by some commentators is that significant curriculum changes have been developed through advisory groups and appointments that have received relatively little public attention. Based on your research, how transparent has the reform process been? And do you think New Zealanders have had enough opportunity to scrutinise them?
I think a lot of people in New Zealand don't understand procurement, and I love procurement processes. It's like the most nerdy thing I can ever say. But it's super interesting, like whether or not something is considered open tender, so anyone can apply, or closed tender, so only certain people can apply. And this government and Erica Stanford have used a lot of closed tender processes,
Yes.
which means that New Zealand companies have been left out. And that
Yes.
means our children aren't receiving maths resources made by Kiwis for Kiwis. It sucks.
Finally, comrade, if these reforms are implemented in full over the next decade, what do you think will be the most significant long-term impact on New Zealand students, teachers and public education?
My concern is mainly the changes with the Teaching Council removing that elected teacher voice. I think it's super important for a profession to have a say over its own profession. It doesn't make sense for those people to all be ministerial appointees. You wouldn't expect doctors, you wouldn't expect ministers to make the decisions and the standards for doctors, for example.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same. Teaching is a profession. And I think sadly, with these changes that Erica is pushing through, teaching is going to be less respected as a profession. And it shouldn't be. It should be one of our most respected professions.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Brie, for sharing your insight and oversight this evening. Where can people follow you?
I am Brie Elliott on everything. 2 L's, 2 T's.
All power to your arm, Brie. Thank you so much. Good luck in your battles.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, comrade. Okay.